The 1980s were a magical time for me as a child growing up. The C64 was growing strong, and with a ton of good games that had been coming out for it recently, I was very happy. Couple that with the 1980s being a great time for movies as well. In those days, a film's production was a quick turnaround, and it seems like great movies just came out each and every week. And with software developers looking for surefire money, they quickly turned to film studios and licensed games based on movies, and Ocean seemed to be the king of this. And in 1986 they released Rambo First Blood Part 2 for the Commodore 64 and other home micros. The game itself was heavily inspired by the Capcom game Commando, but this time it was set in the jungles of Vietnam, as you took control of John Rambo and set about defying orders as usual and freeing up POWs and raising all hell in the POW camp. The game itself was very simple. Move up or around the screen and shoot anything, and I mean anything. Trees, huts, towers, the whole lot. You start off with some limited weaponry in the knife and the bow, but you pick up other weapons such as the machine gun and rocket launcher. Your first objective is to free one hostage and then return for the others in a helicopter. Once you free the other hostages, you then need to hightail it back to headquarters in a helicopter without getting destroyed by the Russian Hind-D that is on your tail. If you are successful, you then start all over again. And that's it. Yes, this is one short game. In fact, when I had it on cassette, it took longer to load the entire game than it did to beat it. And at £9, it wasn't what you would call a value for money game. I am just so glad I didn't pay full price for it, if you know what I mean. Having a look at the visuals, it's hard to believe, but these were not some of the worst graphics seen in a Commodore 64 at the time. They were not good, and a little hard to make out in places. This object here, for instance, is supposed to resemble a machine gun. I always thought it looked more like a sword. And the Rambo sprite with his huge body and tiny legs just stomping about the place, like he's constantly getting stuck in quicksand. It wasn't great, even in 1986. The enemy sprites are just as bad, and really all look the same, albeit for a palette swap appearance. I can't remember what magazine said this, but one of them described the visuals as being done by someone on the YTS. The YTS was a scheme for young school leavers to help them get into employment. And the inference there is that they didn't care one jot for the job they were doing. The sound is excellent in my opinion. The soundtrack by Martin Galway is outstanding, and he really gave the SID chip a good workout. In terms of gameplay, even though the game is limited, it was fun to play. I mean, come on, it was a game based on Rambo. Of course I was going to play it. And actually, the limited size of the game meant it was a good game to play with your mates round, as they knew they would get a shot after only a few minutes. It wasn't a pushover either. I remember always getting killed by the Hind-D as I was trying to make my way back to headquarters, but then a cheat was discovered that allowed the helicopter to travel at a much faster pace. By pressing up on the joystick and then down on the keyboard, the helicopter went into this warp speed setting, and so the Hind-D never got a look in at all. I have to laugh. All my years of school, learning French, German, chemistry and the like, and it's things like cheats on a Commodore 64 that I remember more than any of that. Definitely a product of a misspent youth. Anyway, Rambo was a good game to play. Not the best game on the Commodore 64 by far, and not as good as Commando, but worth 5 minutes play, as that is all it will take. If you like this video, then please do give me a sub and a thumbs up, or maybe even a comment or two below. That's all from me, folks. Thanks for watching.